Hello, my name is Erik Bobilin, and I am here today with Anna Gastic, and we are going to record her story for the Our Streets, Our Stories project of Brooklyn Public Library. The date today is the 30th of May, I think that's right, 2014. Such a luxury to not know what day. So, we've been talking for a few minutes, and I think we've figured out that it was about the mid-70s that you moved from Manhattan to Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And that was just a little bit after your son returned from the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so can we get started by you just describing to me as vividly as you can remember where you moved in Williamsburg and what the streets were like and what the neighborhood.
Well, I don't remember the first house, the first apartment we lived in, but we did live on. I lived on Metropolitan Avenue, Metropolitan and Grand, in that vicinity. I don't remember the actual. It was around like the 700 block on Metropolitan Avenue, that I remember.
How long did you stay at that residence?
About 4 years, I think.
Okay. And at that time, your husband, you were still working for the telephone company?
I may have been. I can't remember. It's now it's like a blur. You
right.
know?
Was your husband still working at that time?
No, my husband worked for himself. He was a handyman.
Okay. Was your son still living with you?
Let's see. No. Oh, he had lived with us when we were in the city, but he married shortly after. Because the funny thing was, we had lived in Manhattan on Stanton Street, which is pretty close to the Williamsburg Bridge. When he went to Vietnam, and he was in after combat or before combat, the men do a lot of just sitting around and waiting for the next order to come through. So to kill some time, he asked some of his buddies, "Do you know of any girls I can write to?" So someone said, "Do you mind a Puerto Rican girl?" And he said no. So they gave him her name and address. This one fella, gave him her name and address, and he wrote to her, and she wrote to him, and he wrote in longhand. She would type back. And he told her to write in longhand. He's a romantic. He told her to write. And the funny thing was, we were still living in Manhattan because she worked for Metropolitan Life. I don't know what capacity, but pretty smart. And he asked for a date with her for lunch at near where she worked. To thank her and all that. I said, "Oh, that was so sweet of you." And he said, he said, "No, Mom." She had sent him a picture. He had asked for a picture.
Oh.
And she sent the picture, and she's cute, you know. And he said, I wanted to see, was she really like that, or was that just a good-looking girlfriend?
Right.
So, and then it took off.
That's funny.
So he was. They went about 2 years, I think, and then got married. And they didn't have a baby right away. They waited because things were hard, you know.
Right.
And then my son wound up. He worked. Couldn't get a job. A Vietnam veteran with a Purple Heart could not get a job. And all he got were these snotty, superior people who, like, I got out of it, you know. And what happened was he took all the civil service, like I said, police, fire, and sanitation, did very well because he wasn't out of high school too long, and because
fresh.
in the military he had been a radio man, so they guarded him because he was the communication.
Right.
So the wind-up was he did very well. He did in the high 90s on his tests. He got a letter. Mayor Denkins was in charge then, and he got a letter from the whatever that department is that handles it, and they wrote him a letter and said that how'd they put it? Due to the discrimination of minorities, he would, even though he got the time off, any minority behind him that passed, got a 65, would jump him. When all the minorities were used up and there were still some positions open, then he would, be taken. How do you think a guy like that feels? Yeah.
So, your whole family is pretty patriotic, would you say, right?
Well, we weren't. We just thought it was a great country. We had, benefits and but then when we ran up against the political end of it, I'm very disappointed. I'm totally disappointed. Well, anyway, it was a blessing in disguise because he went places and the guys in ponytails told him, we don't take Vietnam vets and all that stuff. They thought they were all like raving maniacs with guns on them and all that. But the wind-up was he wound up working at the UN as a security guard.
That's great.
So that turned out he was reading the Times one day, and there had been an ad that they particularly wanted Vietnam vets. So that turned out all right. But
how long did he stay at the
UN?
UN?
He retired from there.
Oh, wow. Okay, that ended up being kind of just the way for him.
So that, in a way, I guess it was good. But, because he said, who knows what would have happened if he had, say, the policeman could have got shot.
Right. Or, it's certainly good to be in a place where, your background is considered an asset.
Yes. At that time.
That's just definitely a more positive work environment.
Yeah, but see, and again, the thing was, the women were starting to come in as security guards after he had been there a while, and the there was a woman there who had children. Now they were like the police; they rotated their hours. There was 4 to 12, 12 to 8, and 8 to 4. This rotating business. The woman got out of it because she had children. She couldn't get a sitter at some of the hours. So she just worked her 8 to 4. And it's very hard to sleep. Like if you go from 8 to 4 to 4 to 12, then, you've been used to being up all night, then you have to sleep in the daytime. And it really messes your system up, Well, do I get supper? Do I have breakfast?
Right.
So it was hard, but then he went into another department. Did he go into another department? I don't remember anymore, though. So that's the story of my son.
Yeah. So it's. Give me 1 second. Anna, so you grew up in the Lower East Side.
Yes.
And you said you moved 3 times within the span of 2 blocks, I believe, in the Lower East Side.
Well, that was when I was married.
Okay.
Because my husband was a handyman, and he always knew a lot of people. People would sell him things, or he would sell them things. If he knew somebody needed a dresser and somebody was selling a dresser, he'd intervene. So he knew a lot of people, and when he find out, somebody's moving, how much is the rent? How much does the landlord want? If the landlord wanted cheap, I mean, not by a few dollars, or it was really nice or something, and we could sort of swing it. Annie, get the stuff together, and we didn't have that much stuff.
Right.
Like everybody has so much stuff today.
Right.
We didn't have, so it wasn't that hard to. And if our linoleum was better than theirs, we picked ours up and took it with us
and move it over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the moving. It was 3 different. And the last house I moved into was the last apartment was really nice. They had like a parquet floor, and in fact, we got it through a piano. A man across. We were living. I don't know, somewhere right a block away or something, because my husband was walking, and this man was some kind of businessman. I don't know what, and he had a sign in the window. Piano for sale. Mm-hmm. So my husband went in and said, "Why are you selling the piano?" He said, "I'm moving." "You're moving? Where do you live?" "I live in this building on this whatever floor it was. I think fourth floor. So we, anyway, moving,
Right.
and it was close by because it was, So he'd get a friend to help, and that's what they did. They helped each other. And we were young,
So he pounced on it.
Sure.
On it quick.
Yeah.
So it's good to know that the real estate market was like the way it is today.
Yeah.
Just so aggressive.
No,
your husband was good at it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a people person, believe it or not. He is. He was. He like we had a dog, German Shepherd, and dogs eat, then they have to do their duty. So whoever, you kind of know the time. So whoever was home would walk the dog. And the thing, sometimes he would take, or if he felt like going down, he would come down with the dog and be back in about an hour. And he could tell me all the dirt and gossip, because he always said to me, "Don't repeat things." Because if you repeat things, people won't. They'll know it came from me.
Right.
But sometimes things he just had to talk about something. So he'd come up with I'd be, that girl, she ran away with this one, and this happened, that happened. And I could stand there for 2 hours and nobody told me nothing. I said, "I don't know what it is about." He said, "Because I don't." Well, I just had too much. I had my mother, I had our son, and then working. I had a busy day. I was always doing something. I wasn't really relaxing. That's why today, I do it today, I do it tomorrow, I don't do it, unless it's really important, like taxes or something like that.
Right.
I keep putting things off.
So, just to isolate it, what about when was this in time?
Well, my husband died. Gee, I forgot when he died. I have to find his birth certificate.
A
death certificate.
Uh-huh.
I have it.
This was still in Manhattan, you said?
No, he died in Brooklyn.
Okay.
We had a hospital called Greenpoint Hospital.
Okay.
That closed, and he died in that hospital just before it closed. But I have a death certificate, if you will.
Well, I guess I'm trying to isolate, when this was going on with him, being a handyman and going around in the neighborhood and, figuring out which apartments were open and finding that place for you to live.
Life teaches you how to, it's a different kind of education, because when he was living in one building and this woman was going to move, and she had a bedroom set, and she wanted so much money for it. So a lady in the building wanted that bedroom set. She wanted to buy it, but she didn't want to pay the price she was asking. She wanted her to come down cheaper. So she's like one of those, I'll think about it. Now the woman's going to move, so she's getting anxious now. She said, I don't want to take this. My husband died. It has memories. I don't want the bedroom set. So my husband heard about this. through the grapevine, he got a hold of the woman who wants to sell the set. And he said, well, I'll give you what I think is a fair price. But he gave it lower than what the other... No. He gave more than this woman really wanted. She figured she's going to move. She's not going to leave it. I'll get it cheap. But he gave a little more. And they agreed. He gave her a deposit and all that. So this bedroom set had a dresser. He took a drawer out. So she says, what are you doing? He said, I'm taking the drawer. So she said, why? She says, because when the lady upstairs hears my price, she's going to want it, and you're going to sell it to her, but without the drawer, it's useless. So you learn street smarts. Yeah.
Where do you think your husband learned the street smarts from?
Just with dealing and being hurt at times, and then, next time I won't do that. Like, he may have probably was buying something, somebody else gave a higher price. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't accept his price, So because then the guy knows what it's worth on the market.
Yeah.
Gets an idea. So this way he took,
right.
Protect you protect yourself. You think of all these things.
But you both grew up during the Depression, though. Is that correct?
Oh yes, he worked during because in fact during the Depression, kids used to. Before the Depression, kids went to school only till they were 14. Then at a certain point in the Depression, they extended it to 16 to keep them off the market so that men could have the jobs, no matter what the work was. But you see, some people were cutthroat. They would try to chisel you so much when a thing is worth something and your back is to the wall, and just because they have a little money, they would really be so mean. And sometimes in the center you see that among the old people. They don't want to tip. You go someplace with them, they're embarrassing. They're squeezing that money. And I can say, how long do you think you're going to live? You're going to be the first one who doesn't die, But it leaves a mark on you. That they think back what they did for like a nickel. Kids worked in illegally, but they worked in clothing factories. They got them cheap. And parents knowingly did this because it brought in money into the house. Because people had a lot of kids years ago. And there was no family loyalty. I had a girlfriend whose mother had 8 children, and my girlfriend oldest, and she had no childhood. She was always helping the mother, washing, cooking, cleaning. There's a problem with this one. She was like the second mother. And as far as loyalty, the mother went someplace, and she came back with this big bag of oranges. And she put it on the table, and instead of staying there and making sure each one gets one, they grabbed the bigger ones grabbed the most, and so the little one would get nothing. So you want that little one's going to be a mean kid when he grows up.
Yeah.
And then if once the mother used to like to play the numbers, so when she hit a number, she'd buy ice cream for the kids. Each one kind of pop. And then the big one would say, let me have some of your ice cream. I'll only take a little bite. And he bit off half the ice cream, So that really upset the little one. Wow! And she just fight it out. She removed herself. They had to figure it out by themselves. And my girlfriend used to clean the house because they're very clean people. And we lived across the street from a park. And my girlfriend would tell one sister, you go in there and do this. You go there, do that. She turns around, they're in the park. And they never came home till time. And here she's doing all the work. And I helped her a little bit, but that wasn't my thing. I said, I got to go home and do homework. I wasn't going to clean. But that's how it was. People took a terrible advantage. The older took advantage of the young. Terrible.
It was just survival.
Yeah, of the fittest.
People.
Yeah. That's it. and you get smarter and you learn and you keep an eye on your stuff or you use it up right then and there. You eat it. You don't carry it around. Oh, I'll have it later. No such thing.
Right.
No such thing.
But you seem like you came out of it without adopting that attitude of...
Well, I was an only child. And because there just wasn't any... You didn't even think of anything because it wasn't there.
Right.
We were so low on the ladder, like people would give us things, but they'd give us stuff that they should have thrown away. My mother said, "Why did they give this to you? It's a rag. It's not even good for a rag." I gave her such and such. The poor woman had it tough enough, and somebody gives her this piece of trash. Boy, if I had them now. Really. Yeah. People, like years ago, before the refrigerator, we had what they called the Icebox. And it was a wooden thing. It looked like sort of like a refrigerator, but it was made of wood, and it had 2 doors, I think. And there was a place for ice, and people didn't have food around like they do today. You look in the refrigerator, there's tons of stuff, and there's a bowl of fruit on the table, and there's cookies out and all that. In the morning you got up, your mother would send you down to the grocer downstairs, and he would get maybe a quart of milk, maybe a quarter pound of butter, so many rolls, and that was it. You're going to have that. Or if you had oatmeal, then you would have the milk and all that. So, and you ate all that, and there was nothing put away. There was nothing standing around. You ate everything, and then for lunch, some kids ate in school. I would come home and whatever, make a sandwich or something. Now supper was the big meal, and everything was eaten. There was no we didn't use the Icebox except maybe in the summertime times because ice cost money, and it had to be a good something real good. We very seldom used ice because people just bought so much.
You bought what you needed for the day.
Yeah, like if you have 4 in the family, you might have. The father would get, say you had pork chops, the father might get 2, the mother gets 1, the kids each get a half a pork chop if they're small, or the bigger one gets a little more, and it's all eaten up, and nothing was put away because who's going to go out and spend a quarter to save a nickel piece of, and then somebody might beat you to it anyway, so
right.
you just ate. And if you wanted ice cream, you had like a little candy store, and you'd buy it, and either you shared it with your brother.
You bought what you were going to use.
Yeah. So
what you were going to eat.
Yeah. It was so.
Was there something?
And that's why the old-time housewives, to this day, some of the elderly women, they shop like
every day.
They shop every day. They only buy enough for the meal instead of like buying enough for today and tomorrow.
Right.
They'll.
Was there? I don't know. Was there something just kind of comforting about the ritual of going to the store every day? I know that wasn't what it was about when it was what was happening. But do you feel that difference between then and now, the way you just kind of stock up on things and you're surrounded.
You do your weekly shopping.
Right. I mean, if that, I'm thinking of myself, and I buy in bulk because I hate shopping so much. And then when I come home, I'm loaded up with all these But yeah, I just, the ritual of doing it every day, getting up and going out and buying.
But they were so busy with cooking, cleaning, and they were sewing. Like we used to have these older women, and there were women. A lot of women didn't work out. The husband came home, and they would mend things, sew on buttons,
Right.
or mend a tear. And women knit. We used to knit sweaters. You would see kids with homemade sweaters up the wazoo. Everybody, and so they didn't go out to business, because when a girl married, usually till she became pregnant, she worked, and after that, she stood home. Like when she started to show, they in some places like this where they didn't want married women working, because jobs were scarce. Everybody was cutting back.
Were your parents, did they always have work?
Well, my father was a very bad alcoholic. My mother, she tried, but sometimes they wanted to pay her so little it didn't pay. But my father was an alcoholic. He was illiterate, but he was a baker. He worked for a Jewish baker. This Gentile alcoholic was like the main baker for this man. It was somewhere on East 8th Street, I think, in Manhattan. And they had these big tubs, big tubs, like that thing there, big. And in one tub would be the batter for rye bread, another one would be for pumpernickel, another one would be for challah, that's like an egg bread. And when the bread would rise, that's the first rising, that's okay. But then when the second rising, you have to use it or it'll spoil. And my father could be sober sometimes for a few months. But then when he went on he was drunk day and night. And this poor guy wanted to get, he had to get him real cheap, because he took abuse. He would come up with his son, come up and try to get him to get in there and do whatever he has to do. And see, my father couldn't read or write, but he knew the recipes, how to make all this stuff. And I'm not going, I don't need you, what are you bothering me for? And they tried to calm him down, to get him to go to the bakery and do what he had to do. And there were a couple of other guys, they were like a step above a bum. They slept in hallways, and sometimes they just get him to whatever lifting and things. And then the wind-up was the guy took such abuse, but finally it did get done, but took a lot of abuse. And they tried to sober him up and push coffee down his throat, and all you had was a wide-awake drunk,
Mm-hmm.
But he always used him, so he must have got him real cheap,
Or maybe he was just a really good baker.
No. Well, he was but he got it because he was abusive. I don't need you. What do you? So I'll go to so and so. But he put up with it because that's how important money was.
What do you think it was for your father? Just the addiction to alcohol, or do you think there was something that drove him to drink?
I don't know. But Russians are supposed to be known. It's like a genetic thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He was born in Russia?
Yeah.
How old was he when he came to the United States?
I don't know. And he didn't want to speak English.
Oh, so the Jewish baker that he worked for, he was Russian as well, of Russian descent, do you think?
Well, he spoke Russian, so I don't know. A lot of Jewish people, they were from all over. He maybe knew Polish, and one leads to the other, And that's why I always, when I see bread, Jewish bread, pumpernickel, and it says kosher, that little paper that says it's kosher. I think, I wonder if there's another Russian.
Oh, right.
Or whatever. Now I don't know what the minority is anymore. But although Greenpoint has a lot of, and it's all Polish mostly. Some people are going up from here because Greenpoint, I think, is cheaper than Williamsburg.
Yeah, definitely some parts of it are. Although maybe that's starting to change now.
I really wonder how long this boom is going to last, because this is mostly like show business people, theater and all this. And I think a lot of trust fund babies, feeling their way. Because I remember I was waiting for a bus on one street, and this very pretty girl, beautiful skin, gorgeous teeth, and she's, reading some, and all these truck drivers are trying to get fresh with her. So I went over to her and said, "You bring out the grandma in me." I said, "I'm going to stand by you and defend you from all these idiots."
Oh, that's so sweet.
So she said, "Oh, I know how to handle it." I said, No, you don't. You're too cocky. You think you can. These guys," I said, "look at him. He's a fat slob, has a bare belly, hasn't shaved in days, and this guy must never look in the mirror. He thinks he's,
right.
some glamour boy, and he can't understand why you're not paying attention to him." But she was like reading, but then her bus came and she left. But I mean, these girls are very naive, because I said, "He's dangerous. He thinks he's a ladies' man." God. So. And now they're robbing them left and right. I read these local papers, and they carry these things openly, and then when they, I don't know how much of these $600 cell phones and stuff, and they use them on the subway, and I don't even wear my. Oh, these are junk jewelry, not anything good. In the summer, I never wear. And I really, now that I'm getting older, I'm getting fear in me. I won't go out at night, Another thing is, to get back to the women, the older women, they would make everything fresh. Very few canned goods were used. And they were always doing like the sewing and the mending. And they had these chairs, folding chairs. And they would gossip about what goes on in the neighborhood. And like I said once, I think to you, if it was like 2:00 and a kid was out of school, so, "Oh, George, how come it's 2:00? How come you're not in school? Does your mother know you're out?" So they were like the little police. And,
right.
"Oh, I saw George. It was 2:00. What happened to him?" So maybe, he had a tooth pulled, they sent him home, but they sort of kept an eye out on each other. Now it's no more of that, because people move around so much.
Yeah. A lot of people have described what you're talking about with the just sort of being outside because it's cooler and being in the chairs and that kind of almost community policing element that was there, that existed in this neighborhood because of the times that they were there.
And see, there was a thing like shame. Mm-hmm. If your child is something that was very bad, say he stole something,
right.
Someone bugged him up, or for whatever reason, he was in a person's home visiting somebody and stole something, that was a scandal. You didn't do things like that. Right. You come into a person's home, you don't steal. Mm-hmm. So, because people would shun you then.
Right.
Oh, you have a son who's a thief. I can't let you in my home.
Yeah. The more I hear about it, the more I think that this really is a big part of what's changed over time in this country is that, I guess, people talk about, having both parents working and the lack of, available time to spend with the children, and the effect that has on the way kids grow up nowadays, and latchkey kids and whatnot. But parents have always worked, like you've been describing it to me. Alternately, both of your parents worked, but what maybe has been lost now is just like the community element, which was there to kind of co-parent.
Now they resent you for telling them something. Do you know your kid did this or that? So, what do you care? Right. They resent it. People don't know how to parent anymore. There's no discipline. And little kids make decisions on their own. Mama's not here, Papa's not here. The babysitter is on the phone with her boyfriend. So the kid doesn't get the attention that it should. There's a caring, like you watch the animals, how after the female has her litter, she basically her main thing is just to feed them and protect them from harm. But then she teaches them somehow where the water is if you're thirsty, where this is if you're hungry, and then they start if they're of that type, the hunting, how to hunt. Are you big? Is this guy we want to kill? Is he too big for you? Uh-huh. Or are you going to go in a pack? Or you're going to, however animals communicate. Because it's, so we should teach, well, kids learn how to cook young. They learn how to sew. Sons help their fathers. How many do you see fathers and sons working on a car? It's all electronic now. It's all electronics. So that's gone. So there's no closeness anymore. And I think kids today, they're so educated, they think they're smarter than their parents. They might be book-wise, but not life-wise. And it's sad. The family life is being destroyed. They expect the American woman to get married, have children, go to work, have a career. That's all right if you're a millionaire's wife, but this poor woman's going to come home and like we have these aides who help seniors who need a little help with their shopping and going to the doctor and all that stuff. They call them aides. They get like $10 an hour, which isn't a lot of money, but they have somebody that helps them, and I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But then you had grandchildren who did a lot of stuff, and you had either her children would help her or your grown-up children. The family helped each other. But now they move to California. First thing they do when they graduate, they go to California. And they're not there for you, especially as you get older. Things, So.
Can we jump back in history for a second? Because,
you lead me wherever you want to go.
Well, you're describing something that doesn't exist anymore, but it definitely existed when you were finishing up high school, because you were describing to me graduating from the
high school 188.
Oh, right, but the Central High School for Needle Trades in Manhattan, and graduating from there and getting married and having your son William, and then taking care of your mother all at the same time.
Well, with my mother was a reciprocal thing, because she watched my son. I said, Mama, if I go to work, you're going to have to watch him. I can't work and pay a babysitter and give you money to live on, because my mother would not take welfare. She was terrified of the government. Maybe she was an early illegal. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Because what they used to do, once the World War II, there were rumblings starting. The war was coming closer to us. Mm-hmm. If you were not a citizen, which my mother wasn't, my mother knew how to read and write, but she couldn't become a citizen. She was studying to take out her papers, but then, I don't know, something happened that she didn't have the time to go to attend classes because she was afraid my father was drunk and I'm alone with him. He might get real nasty and hit me or something. But he never hit me. I think he knew if he did, she would have maybe killed him, hopefully.
Right.
But that didn't happen. But she was always, especially when I was little. So she never made it to get her citizenship. So when the war rumblings were starting, if you were not a citizen, you had to go to your local post office and register that you were so-and-so from so-and-so.
Wow.
And once a year. And that was it.
And she was Austrian, is that right?
Yeah.
She had moved to the United States from Austria, and so I guess with the rumblings of World War II, maybe that was uncomfortable for her.
Well, my mother was here before World War I erupted. Mm-hmm. And before, we had there was I think she was a nun, but a nursing nun. She helped find the cure for polio. She helped that Dr. Salk.
Wait, really?
Yeah, Dr. Salk. She was like a nursing nun, and they had kids. They put them in these long tubes. It was horrible. Kids would die from polio. If they lived, they just couldn't move. It was a terrible, terrible thing. But I think Dr. Jonas Salk was the one who found the cure.
She worked with him?
The nun, yeah. She was very... I can't think of her name, but she always wore... Instead of nuns wear their black habits, she wore the nurse's uniform. So that was good. But it was... everything was just hard. Nothing was easy. It was hard. But you put up with it, and it's another challenge, and just keep on going. Like, I had a girlfriend. Now, her mother used to sew plain dresses for herself and her daughter, plain dresses. She made her own noodles. I remember seeing the bed with a clean old sheet when she made the batter, and then she poured, however she rolled them out and cut them and put it on the bed to dry. And I don't know how it was like that, but it was full of these noodles. Yeah, and she darned. She did, and the father he would fix the shoes. He had a special stand with like a foot, and you put the shoe on it and you hammered it away. And so everybody, people were creative. They would do things by themselves, and they talk among themselves. The men. You know how men with the cars. Well, this is a Chevy. This is a Ford. I don't think you can mix. However, whatever was going on, some of the Puerto Rican people still do that. You see where there's a car, the hood is up, and they're looking and talking, and one guy goes behind. So it's nice to see when people unite, and it united people. It gave them and sometimes one of the wives would come down with tea or coffee or something. They didn't want to go upstairs and refresh them. So it was a closer time, and you behaved because you knew there was always somebody watching, or there'd be somebody would tell on you, And the mother wasn't too bad, but if you told your father, because men, a man works in a factory all day and has a boss who's yelling at him, he's not going to come home and somebody's going to tell you the son scratched his window or did something, you did that, you're going to pay for it. And they did. Worked it off. Whatever the man wanted done, he did. You didn't get away with it. And today it's getting more bizarre. See, they don't know what to do. They have too much time on their hands. And their biggest thing is to be as outrageous as they can be. I like this, and this, what is he? He's a producer, and his son had these bizarre ideas, and they sent him to a stranger. Now, I wonder, was the father, I don't know, was he always traveling? They make a lot of films overseas because it's cheaper. I don't know what the mother did. I just saw something in the paper today, nothing, So, and they're divorced. So, well, if people hate each other, it's better to divorce than to live together. But you try, and you try to adjust, because no one is ever going to be completely the perfect person. I'd worry, say, oh, they're wonderful. Hey, wait, there's a little devil in there somewhere.
You know what strikes me about this particular neighborhood of Williamsburg as being interesting, I guess, is that, and you've been kind of hinting at this, and I found it to be somewhat true also, is that this new group of people that lives here now, that live here for a couple of years, and maybe they're starting their family here, but then they move on.
If they bounce around.
Right. I see it as a librarian here because, some of the young families that I'll get attached to will then move on to California, for example. But there's also a big group of younger people that come in and move through, and then this neighborhood is becoming more of a place to be kind of neighborhood where there's a lot of social things you can do, but it's not the same kind of community atmosphere that it always was traditionally.
Oh, no.
So while you've been describing it, I've been thinking to myself, well, some neighborhoods maybe just aren't they just don't function that way, where it's not a close-knit community, and it's not intended to be. But I think the difference is here in Williamsburg is that it always historically was.
Oh yeah, it was very family oriented, very, very much. These are people who are career oriented.
Yeah,
they go where the job takes them. So they come in and stay a while, and boom, they go off wherever the next opportunity is for whatever field they're in. So
it's just a stopping over place instead of a place that you...
Yeah, like we had Domino Sugar. That's a big sugar factory. We had a bunch of beer companies that are gone. Now, that was a lot of work. So the company was there, the man went to work, and the wife, if there was some sort of electrical company that if you had a pulse, they put together switches and things. And this one woman was telling me she had 2 boys, and she said, well, they're getting older, and they can take care of themselves, and you'll be home in the evening. She wanted to work part-time in this, I forget what the name of the switch company was, electrical company was. He said, well, if you can keep the house clean, the kids clean, and everything stays the same, then you can do it. Like he's doing her a favor, but she said she just wanted to get away from the house and him, because he was starting to drink a lot. He was a truck driver. He started to drink a lot, so she wanted to get away from him that way. But eventually she wound up leaving him. But she tried the best she could, but it didn't work.
Well, I haven't asked you this yet, and I am curious. But so, having grown up and even started your family living in the Lower East Side, what drew you to Williamsburg? How did you end up here?
We knew somebody who lived in Williamsburg. I don't know what street. Well, it's not too far off the bridge. Mm-hmm. So as we kept coming, we said, "Oh, this my husband more than me. He really
wanted to be here.
He kind of liked it. I think maybe the rents were even a little cheaper than that. But then the drugs came in. The drugs were terrible, and it's coming back now.
In the 70s?
Yeah, the 70s, the drugs were all over the place. And
you would see it. You would see
the music. And the robberies were unbelievable. You go to work, you come home, your door is off the hinges, your stuff is gone, and they think that's a little good. And my son's fighting for his country.
So this was during the Vietnam War that you actually moved, but no, you were still in Lower East Side during Vietnam, right? Or this was
No, it's he was in Vietnam. He got out in 72. He was there 69 to 70. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, it gets hard, the specific years, but people have talked about that with Williamsburg as especially people who, lived in Manhattan would see, the other side of the Williamsburg Bridge as being like kind of a scary place a little bit.
Well, Williamsburg also had the drugs, but not as bad. Mm-hmm. Because there was still enough of the old people and people that I think it was the new people coming in. It was why, with the drugs and.
So were a lot of people moving into Williamsburg in the 70s, just like you and your family?
It started. It was the beginning, but now it's really. And they made it up because these are educated people. We weren't in that class at all. Mm. But the robberies are the things that are. It's hard, People have nice things they want to wear. They want to show them off, especially when you're young.
Well, yeah, and you've been describing to me that with your husband, being so good at finding things like a bedroom set and other things that maybe your house kept getting better and better and better as you went along, and you finally had some,
Yeah, well, I at one point when he was a teenager, when we where the man had the piano for sale. That was a nice building. Mm. The landlord lived in the building, the landlady rather. And she had a son play the piano. You could hear him in the air shaft playing. It was nice. And we had a shower, which we had never had. That was nice. Mm-hmm. But then, like I said, my son had that on his mind as a teenager because at that time we had the draft, So they called him because it was the Lower East Side was not a good address. So they took him.
How did that feel?
Terrible.
This was in the early part of the war?
I don't know. No. Well, it had been going on for a while, but then it spread, more and more. I don't see the point of war. Just kills people. It causes a lot of harm. But they need it for some reason. I read a book once called The Rich and the Super Rich, and I didn't finish it. I have it about 20 years, and in it, he's a professor of finance, and he talks about how he feels that the world is controlled by about so many families. You don't know who they are. They just keep on multiplying and going, and it controls everything. And it seems like every country is following a similar pattern. It starts off, things are good. Then things get bad. Then we need a war to keep people busy and making money and making munitions. So I think the worst people are the munitions sellers. Put them out, and that keeps on and on. Then things quiet down, get a little better, and every country seems to follow it. So I mean, once in a while you say, I wonder if there is this mystery bunch of families throughout the world, because it all seems like now they're building skyscrapers in all other countries and who never had skyscrapers, and we have people here buying houses, not houses, but $15 million apartment. What makes an apartment worth $15 million? Brick and stone, but still,
Yeah.
So.
Well, so
Did I throw too much at you?
Well, no, I'm just kind of wondering with all of this, like, what is good? Like, what's still good?
What's still good? It's you run across people, you get disgusted with the world, and then you'll come across a decent person who's a little kind, who tries to counsel you or guide you if you, and then you say, yeah, it's not so bad after all.
So individuals.
Yeah, meeting a decent individual.
Yeah.
But it's hard to know. People only show you the face they want you to see.
Right.
I'm not going to say, gee, I hate you, good. You just put up with a lot of things. So what it's all about, I don't know. My son said, Mom, what's it all about? I said, who knows? and you don't know, because it just seems the reverse. The bad people, and some of the bad people they have it all. They have the money, they have the education, connections, and God, what the politicians are getting away with is terrible. And there's, like this guy Snowden. I think he did a service for the country and the world. They have stuff now that you can use your telephone, and that's on record now forever. And and if they want to hear it again, they can bring it back. And now they have, what do they want? Cars, there's a key, because it's electric, it can record where you went, how long you were there, and they now can zone in on that key and read that key. And, my God, so anything innocent could probably interpret as something bad. And why should they have this kind of information on people? They're really delving into way, way, way too far. Way too far. Well, we know on this day. Well, how'd you get that information? You spied on me. Why did you spy on me? So I think that this power is making them crazy. And Steve Jobs, well, I read his life story, and he was a genius when it came to this technology, but he was stupid when it came to his personal life, because he was an addict. He sort of thought he was like God, because he went to India and all that. And they say that if you, I think they want this high that they get. And there was a professor, Timothy Leary, and he got all these kids hooked on drugs. He should rot in hell. And he sort of liked what he was thinking. And this thing came about a fashion. You starve yourself. When you don't eat at all, you got a high from it, an unbelievable high. So that's why I think when he went to India and he wasn't eating, and he got some kind of disease that he couldn't get rid of after a time.
You mean an addiction?
Yeah, an addiction to some, and from don't eat. I mean,
yeah. Well, was there a time before drugs were around? I imagine, being here and being in New York City throughout the era that you did, you probably saw the rise of drug use.
We had very little drug use for quite a while. The big thing was drinking. Mm-hmm. Men drank. And some people, I think show business people seem to take drugs, but I think they took it for the wrong thing. They took it because, especially like show business people, like dancers, and where they would be on stage they were tired, so they took it to give them energy. But it was, a misuse of a drug. And then they say, their bonus was that they felt good. It helped them to, like, if a chorus girl or comedian or anybody who has to travel and be on stage and, keep going and going. And they can't eat too much because they get fat and all this kind of stuff. So, and it not only gave them the energy, it gave them this high as a bonus. So they mess themselves up. And they need the money. They have a lifestyle and all other problems. So. But man isn't satisfied. I don't know. I'm just in my corner. And when the time comes and said, Anna, come on. I said, okay.
What was, if we could just kind of, I know this isn't a weird question, I'm going to ask it anyway, but just to kind of summarize and bring it all together, what was the greatest period for you living here your whole life?
I think right now, right now I'm content. I'm not happy,
right.
And I don't expect to be. That's not reality. Mm-hmm. It just seems life is that way. You have your ups and your downs. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes when something's going real good, I'm saying, and sometimes nothing happens. You just have a good streak. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes you just, there's a lot of minor annoyances of life, as long as my big worry is sickness and being incapacitated as I'm going down the road. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not as limber as I was, and not as strong as I was. But I was never a very physical person, But I don't know. I'm content. What comes. What can I do? So let it work itself out, or else they say, "Come on, let's go." I said, "All right." There's no babies left or any homeless, helpless. Like if my mother was around, I'd worry who'd take care of her. But my son has a wife.
So you're content.
Yeah, and I have a granddaughter who's on her career. So.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Do they live? Does your son and his family? Do they live in town?
Huh?
Does your son and his family? Do they live here in the city?
My son, he lives in Queens.
Okay.
Nearby. Yeah. And I don't know how I let you get away with my not talking about my granddaughter more. You got some of it. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to show you.
I'm not an expert.
Oh no. I have to show you her card. She hasn't got time to send her grandmother a clean card, so you have to read a dirty card.
Okay.
I know I have it. Can you stop that for a minute?
Absolutely.
Because we don't want it to.
In fact, we're right at an hour now.